there. However, I am not sure. This is not good. Health is good. Okay, my friends, this is Hilton Samuel. However, I am not sure. This is not good. That is good. Can everyone hear me now? Okay. My friends, this is Hilton Samuel. Great. Then we can start. Are you able to see a preview of me in the bottom right hand corner of your screen? All right, welcome everyone, and we are about to launch. We're about to talk about practical ways to meet a Christian wife or a Christian husband. I know that we have started this conversation last week and we ran out of time, and we would like to expand and expound on this vital, important, necessary topic, because although we are living in a world where there are so many people, it is said that there is about 10 million people, maybe more, in London. And the UK has probably approximately around 65,000 million people. Yet, many of us are suffering from aloneness, not being able to make connection, when we are living in a world where connection has never been easier. We are connected, or we should be able to connect via online technological methods and means, through social platform, through apps, through mobile phone. Being able to meet each other, we can whiz around the country within a day. Whereas years ago, they took days to get from one area, one point, from one geographical point to another. But yet, we are not able to make the deep personal connection. And tonight, I'm going to talk about how to meet practical ways to meet a Christian person. Now, just to give a voice check again, to make sure that I'm not prattling on without people hearing me, let me ask you to tell me what you can see on your screen. Sorry about that. Great. Okay, well, let's start the program, and we are going to start as usual by having a word of prayer. As I go on, I'll be asking you questions. I want you to interact. I want you to ask questions, make comments, and sometimes I may not be able to see what you're saying. However, I'll take pauses, so there will be little gaps, because there seems to be a time delay in what I say and when you hear it. So whatever you're doing, I want you to just take a moment and pause so that we can pray together. Are you ready? Father in heaven, I thank you for another opportunity in which we can speak frankly, we can talk candidly, we can glean ideas on how to go about the process for which you created human beings, which is to relate and which is to be fruitful, which is to multiply, which is to conquer the world. And so today, I want you to bless us in our conversation. I want you to help us not only just to have a talk shop, but to get pragmatic and practical ideas and, for want of a better term, techniques that we can apply to our lives. And I pray that we will not be hearers only, but we will be doers, because this will really help us to get to the position and place where we can meet, we can date, and we can marry and have godly families in Jesus' name. Amen. Are you all ready to start? Okay, welcome Tasha, welcome Patricia, welcome Eve if you're there, and any other person who has joined. Don't be afraid to connect and let us know that you're there and join in the conversation. It is always good to converse. It's always good to interact. And it is as we interact, the Bible says, iron sharpeneth iron. Now, I want to talk about, firstly, as we go along, the biblical methods of how people met. We have spoken about this before, but I will just review, revise, recap some of these ideas. The first human beings, Adam and Eve, they met because God matched them. God made Adam, we know the story quite well, and he was given the job to name and identify the animals, and in the process he found out that there was no other creature or creation like him, and as a result of that, God put him to sleep, took a rib out, and created Eve. So God was the first matchmaker. I have news for you, my brothers and sisters, that God is still in the matchmaking business. He was the first matchmaker, and he is still in the matchmaking business, and he wants to match you up. Secondly, in the Bible, throughout the patriarchal times, many people were matched through families, primarily through parents, and more specifically through their father. You remember the story of Abraham, which is really the story that I like to refer to, the story that gives us a clear indication of how biblical families were created, where Abraham actually picked, not just Abraham, by extension, the servant of Abraham selected a bride for Isaac. If we go further on, we would know that always when someone sees a girl, they always need to go and speak to the family, primarily the males, the father, and if he's not around, the brothers of that family. We know that Saul was able to farm his daughters off. He said that if anybody brought back 100 foreskins of the enemy, they would be able to have have one of his daughters. David did, and David got Michal. Later on, there was some kind of disruption in the relationship of Saul and David had to run and become a fugitive, and Saul farmed out David's wife to somebody else, So in those days, the father seemed to have almost total control of his daughter. So that used to happen in biblical and patriarchal days. How did they meet? In many instances, they met at wells. Again, referring back to the story in Genesis chapter 24, the guy, Abraham's servant, thought that it was a strategic plan if he was going to meet any woman to position himself near the well. It is said that most of the women would go to the well to draw water for their domestic duties. And I would suspect he went to the well because it increased the chances of him meeting a prospect. I am going to talk a little bit deeply on modern wells in the future. We also know that Jacob met Leah at the well. Moses met his wife at the well. So, the well seemed to be the place that many of those people in that culture met and socialized. What are the modern methods? What are the modern methods of meeting and interacting? Some of you and many of you are familiar with some of them, but today we're going to break them down. We are going to dissect them. There are two camps, two different divergent thoughts of how we should get a prospect, a wife or a husband as Christian. I said this before and I like to say it again. There are some people who I believe they are what I call the wait and see the romantic salvation of God. So they preach that they're not going to look, they're not going to get involved in choosing because perhaps they may choose the wrong person. They're going to allow God to choose for them, and they pray and wait for God to either open doors, send somebody in their lives, or take them to a place where they could meet someone. And by the way, that's how God led people in the past. There are times when God caused people to move from one geographical area to the other through various circumstances where they met someone with whom they could form a bond, a relationship, and build a family. So we know that Jacob, through his shenanigans, had to run away from his home, and he went, and through that process he met Rachel and Leah. Similarly, Moses had to ship out of Egypt quickly, and that's how he met his wife. And there are many different stories of people moving from place to place and meeting their prospect, their wife, their husband. So that's one. There is a second set of people I call the ASK: ask, seek, and knock. Personally, my position, my opinion on this is that there should be a combination of these two things. I belong to the prayerfully seek and be divinely led, as you ASK: ask, seek, and knock. So that is my position, if you want to know what position I hold on those. So today I want to start off by telling you something that you may have already known, but you probably may not have thought about it in the way that I am putting it across. And there are two foundational basic principles in meeting, dating, marrying someone. The first one, in order for that to happen, people must know that you exist. It's one of those things that's self-evident, but sometimes many people miss. It doesn't matter how beautiful you are, how wonderful you are, how great a Christian you are, how kind and hospitable and helpful you are, how loving you are. If a man doesn't know you exist, then all that counts for nothing when it comes to meeting you and marrying you. It doesn't matter how rich, how handsome, how godly, how many priestly principles you abide by. If you're a man and a woman doesn't know that you exist, then there is no chance of you marrying her. So it goes without saying, you must meet possible prospects. From that basic foundation and principle, I now want to talk to you about modern ways of finding people, the modern well. I'm going to come back to the screen that I just passed. Here is a modern well. We don't use these things anymore to get water. We have water pumped into our place of abode. Now, herein lies a problem. Because we are living in a society where many of us, and all of us, have the luxury of having things at our convenience and almost at the snap of our fingers, I believe that modern people want ready-made spouses. Let me repeat that. Many of us subconsciously don't want to do the dirty work. We want someone to be brought into our lives, given to us, and so that we don't have to go out and risk being rejected, risk our integrity being dragged in the dust. We just want to know, wouldn't it be nice if God were to give you a dream and tell you that this is going to be your husband, or that is going to, well, she's going to be your wife, and give that person a similar vision or a dream or a voice from heaven, a revelation, so that both of you could just simply walk over to each other and know that God has brought you together. Wouldn't that be great? Won't that be nice? And I think that is what many people literally want. We don't want the headache and heartache of having to, is he interested in me? What if I am interested in him and he is not interested in me? Or if I ask her out and she dropped me like a hot potato, and then all my ego, all my, I'm hurt. What if I pour out my heart and let him know that I like him and he just simply don't accept me? That's very painful. Let me say, my brothers and sisters, I understand. And I would have preferred that myself. But God is in the process of helping us develop skills. And so we need to go through the almost down and dirty process of risking rejection, risking our hearts being broken, risking and go through the process of perhaps even building a relationship, and sometimes locking horns and getting mad and getting disappointed and coming back together. All of this is vital and necessary in helping us to become the best person, the best spouse, the best wife, the best husband that we can be. It's messy, it's emotional, but it's necessary. First of all, let's deal with expectations. And we have to be very clear that whenever we are coming into this arena, you need to be clear that God wants you married. We spoke about this before, and I'd just like to expand on it, that you do not come with the thought about, maybe it's not going to work for you. Maybe it will never work for you. Because the Bible is clear that what you think about, you bring about. The Bible is faith. It's based on faith. That regardless of the so-called man shortage you see around you, the so-called scarcity of possible prospect, prospects. God is in the business of putting people together. And God has 1,000 ways to make this happen, of which you know nothing. So you just need to sit back and you need to relax and you need to think that it's going to happen. It's not if it's going to happen, but when it's going to happen. And then with this certainty, you can go about your life, just looking for times and ways and opportunities when it will happen. And it is this certainty that you need to have and you need to rest upon. Because if you knew right now that next year, this time, God is going to bring a man or a woman into your life, how would you behave now? How would you walk and talk and dress and respond and react to issues and problems? How would you go about your day? What would you do tomorrow when you wake up? If you knew for certain, if God gave you a prophetic vision of you being happily married in 2020 or 2021, it will put everything in perspective here. And you won't mind going through the problems and the issues. But you know what? God wants you to know that by faith. God wants you to know that the lack and the limitations that you see around you, He's not limited by those. So have no fear. The first thing we need to do is to accept that it's going to happen. So are you ready now for the practical things that we're talking about that I want to share with you? Now, the first one that I want you to think about and understand is that there may be people in your current world that might be good for you, that might be a good prospect for you. I always think I always think about oh boy, I think I need to get some water. I always think about Adam. You know, when Adam was made, before Eve came along, Adam probably was a little bit puzzled about where another creature like him would come from. You see, not only did Adam Adam didn't have, like some of us have, very few options. He had no options. And this is where God started from. God started, and Adam didn't know that within him, within his own body, there was the potential of having someone who's complementary to him. And sometimes you're walking around with your eyes closed. It's like you have blinders on. You know, sometimes we go through the world and there are things around us that we don't even notice. Our minds just simply, our brain simply blank them out. And until someone probably points it out to you, you would probably never notice. It is almost like, when you purchase a car or a dress or something that you thought was going to be unique to you alone, and you get it, and then everywhere you go, people have the same dress or are driving the same car. So there might be people in your world that you are blind to. So I want for you to pray that God open your eyes. If there is a potential of someone who's currently in your world that you know, that you relate with, who would make a good prospect, ask God to take off the scales off your eyes and reveal that person to you. I think of a couple I know that goes to a church down in Fulham, and they basically were in the same church for almost 12 years before it dawned on them that they liked each other. That is amazing. That's amazing. So think about people in your world. And here is the process that I want you to think about, evaluate your current options. So I sometimes ask people who come to me, what are your options? There are three types of options that people have. They have what I call hot leads, warm leads, and cold leads. So you might want to ask me, well, what do you mean, Hilton? What are these? Now, a cold lead, a cold option, is someone that you admire or like or is attracted to, who do not know that you have that kind of attraction to. You know, there's someone that you see from afar off. They may go to a church that you go to, but they don't know. You probably, never showed interest. And that person may not even know that you exist. So that's what I call. It's almost like when you're cold calling in a marketing scenario. You may have had cold marketing calls. So they don't know you from Adam, but they're calling you and trying to get you to purchase something. Similarly, that's what I call a romantic cold lead. That person doesn't know you, or even if they may remotely know about you, they don't know that you have that kind of interest in them. Now, what's a warm lead? A warm lead really is someone you know or you know about who someone has indicated to you that they like you. So someone might tell you, oh, that fellow likes you. Or your friend may say, that person is interested in you. So that's a warm lead. It's you know the person, or you know of the person's interest in you. You may decide that you're interested, or you may not be equally interested in him or her. Now, a hot lead is really a person who shows direct interest in you. They may have verbalized their interest, or even if they haven't verbalized their interest, you know that they're interested because of the way they relate to you, what the things they do to you, how they behave around you. But you yourself haven't made up your mind whether or not you have similar interests in that person. So do you understand now? So these are people within your world. There may also be people within your world that you have not really perceived or thought of in that context. So tonight, I want you to ask God to tell you whether or not there are people in your world that you should consider. Okay. How would a possible prospect get to know about you? So let's think that, we've spoken about people in your world. The person may go to church with you. You may even grow up in the same village as the person. So those are people within your kind of knowledge. But there may be people out there, and I think and I know that there are people out there who are looking. They are looking for a person who has the qualities that you have, who has the features that you have, who has the physical shape that you have, who has the face that you have, who have the giftings that you have and the talents that you have. They are searching hither, thither, and yon. They are scratching their heads to find out where in the world can they find a person like you, a lovely person like you, a wonderful person like you. But they don't know that you exist. So here is what I always say, and you might have heard me say, you need to show up at the well. If Rebecca didn't go to that well that day, the chances of her connecting and meeting and having the opportunity to be the wife of Isaac may not have happened. So you need to show up. So how would a possible prospect get to know that you exist? There are many ways. Well, first of all, through recommendation. And I want to stop here, and I want to say to you that all of us are being watched. I don't know, one of the things that really got my attention when I came to this country is the amount of CCTV cameras around. Everywhere you go, there is a camera watching you. And it used to be scary to me. But now, living in the culture, you get, you adapt to the environment in which you live. However, wherever we go, we are always being watched and looked at and observed by people. And you do that too. All of us, people watch people, and people talk about people. And people, you talk about other people when they're not around, and people talk about you. And similarly, I guess the point that I'm building up to, people are mentioning your name in one way, shape, or form or the other. And a lot of times, people who are looking for prospects would be asking maybe your friend or your family, your colleague or do they know someone that they could recommend? And sometimes, it comes up in just little conversation. I'm sure when we were growing up, or even now, you go to church and the older people, they see a person, and I've heard people come and tell me, oh, that girl will make a nice wife for you, So one of the ways people get to hear about you is through recommendation and through other people talking. I remember Fred saw a wonderful girl, and he liked the girl, and eventually they actually got connected and got together. And Fred thought that it was his charm that won the girl over. They did get married, and it wasn't until they were really settled down in the family that she actually told Fred that she heard and knew about him long before they even met. And in fact, she overheard her sister and her sister's best friend talking about this character, this person. And in her mind, she said, boy, that is a wonderful... that. In her mind, she thought that would be a good person for her to get married to. Little did Fred know that even before he met the girl, his reputation went ahead of him. And this is the point I'm making, that your reputation, your honor, your fame, your name, your character is going out there. And what are people saying about you? How are they recommending you? Jesus, when he went someplace, his reputation went before him, and people from all over the place were magnetized towards him. So, in the last, I don't know if I have this here. Oh yes, this is a good example, that King Solomon's reputation. I was having devotion with my boys, my family, and we read in 1 Kings, I think chapter 3, how the Queen of Sheba came all the way, hundreds, maybe thousands of miles, to see if what she heard about King Solomon was really so. And when she met King Solomon and interacted with King Solomon, she said half the story weren't told. And so too, your reputation is going about. What kind of reputation? And in the last webinar, I said to you that, you don't even have to be attractive, you have to be useful. And when you become useful, you become both beautiful and attractive. If you need to know more about that, check the last webinar that we did. Okay, so spread your influence, and you are being watched. And the way we spread our influence is actually being hospitable, being kind, being nice. All of those fruits of the Spirit, if we practice them, our influence would spread like these dandelion seeds, and people will hear about us and become attracted to us. Let's get to some more pragmatic things. So, a man cannot know, or men cannot know about you. They cannot meet you. You cannot meet them except through your acquaintances, friends, and places that you go. I spoke about this last week, and I'll explain this. So you need to expand your contacts. and connections. The more people you know, the more people you will be able to know, and the more likely it is for you to meet someone who is suitable to you by and through your friends and acquaintances. I know that we have lots of online dating sites and more people are connected, but I tell you one thing, the best way to meet someone is to meet them through someone that you already know. So how many people do you know? I'm going to ask you, let me just say here, the larger your network, the higher the chances of meeting a potential spouse directly or indirectly through their network and through recommendation. So I want you to do something for me now. Let's take a quick break. And I want you to make a list. And we're going to start from people that you had connections with, but through life and movement, and you have actually lost touch. Your childhood friends and family, people that you used to go to school with, people that you used to go to church with. I want you to make a list of people that you have not made a connection with for a long time. Maybe just draw a list of 2 or 3 people. And you will be surprised that sometimes I had a meeting with someone I was working on with a website, and he said to me, he does accounting, and he said to me, he decided that he was going to expand his business, and he prayed about it, and he texts one of his university friends that he didn't see. He heard that the person was in hospital, and he texts that person just to find out how he is, how things going. And the next day he got a text back from this person saying, oh, he's really good, that he contacted him because they have decided to set up a WhatsApp group of all of them. There were about nearly 100 of them in that year, and so far they have gotten either 65 to 70 people. And all of a sudden he was put in contact by him being in the WhatsApp group, because the friend asked him, does he mind joining, and added his name. He was immediately given access to 65 people all over the world that he knew from university. And these people were working in various companies, and usually they are at the top, mid to upper managers, having their, some had their own companies, and he was just amazed that he was able to make that connection through one text. So, I have this vision that sometimes the people who you knew, who knows you, and when you reconnect, you're not just reconnecting with them, you're reconnecting to their new network of people. So take a little while and do that exercise. I'm going to get myself a sip of water. Don't go away, I'll be right back. Okay, have you done that? Now I just want to talk about meeting more people and how you can meet more people. Let me just say that we spoke about this last week, just being out and about. This is just the generic way. Many times, many of us commute simply by jumping in our cars and scootering everywhere we go. While this is convenient, it has reduced our chances of meeting and connecting with people. So, if you regularly drive, I want to suggest that you take public transport. You leave a little bit earlier, you get on the bus or on the train and commute to where you want to go. I also suggest that more and more people are shopping online. So their world is shrinking smaller and smaller because they're just in one little space. They are purchasing everything online. They're going to and from work in their little cars or big cars, and it is reducing the amount of people. Not only that, many people, myself included, when they get on the public transport, they're on their phones. Their headphones on, they're typing, texting, watching their little screen in their hands. And I'm suggesting to you, if it's not important and necessary when you go out, put your phone away in your bag or pocket and seize an opportunity to connect with and talk with someone around you. Well, we can meet people through our workplace and work events. But last week, the week before last, I spoke about living life based on your values. And here is what I want you to tell me. What value have you started to live in your life? Remember, we spoke about identifying your values. Can someone tell me something that they have identified and started to exercise, started to do, started to implement in their life? I'm going to give you a minute or two to respond to me in the chat box, because I know that I've been talking a bit, so I want some interaction at this point. Okay, are we there? Can I get some kind of response? Oh, hold on. Creativity, visiting galleries again and doing embroidery. Well done to you, Patricia. Anybody else? I do know that one of you, you're constantly going out and about creating events around your interest of natural hair. And I like something that I heard you've been doing is called, I think you've been called Let There Be Natural Hair. I like that. What I would like to say, okay, well done, Tasha. Socializing more on social media. And that's an interesting thing, because I want to say, this embroidery thing that you're doing, Patricia, I am absolutely sure that there are groups online, whether Facebook groups or other social media groups, who's doing similar to what you're doing here. So you could join them. Just go to Facebook, do a search for Facebook groups, embroidery, and you will be shocked what comes up. Well, let's continue by suggesting spiritual events. Now, believe it or not, there are many events put off by churches and community groups, not only churches, groups within the communities, and national events that you can take part in. Just the other day, my friend, I think she went on a book event, Christian book event. The amount of events that have been put on, you will be quite surprised. So if you simply join or look on Eventbrite, that's just one of the places, or if you listen to Premier Christian Radio or any other Christian radio, from time to time you will hear of events being put on by churches that I am going to suggest that you attend, particularly the free ones. Don't be afraid to get involved and engage in these events. A, you will feel better. B, you're more likely to meet and connect with like-minded people. C, you will be surprised that your chances of meeting someone at some of these events would literally explode. Tasha says, oh, there is a youth event every Friday at Brixton Church. It's excellent. Let there be good here. All right, Tasha, let me know when your book comes out. I'll be sure to get one of it, although I don't have any here in my head. If you have any ideas of how I could get some hair growing on my head again, Tasha, I'll be very happy. Okay. Now, I have spoken for a long time about fun and leisure activities, so I want you to sit down for a bit and think of something that you used to do, whether it's netball or basketball or dancing, that you no longer do, or something that you've always wanted to do but you haven't done. I've always wanted to jump out of a plane. My wife thinks I'm crazy and she forbids me from doing any such thing. But you just do something that you haven't done for a long time, or you've always wanted to do, it's on your bucket list, or you started and have stopped. I would like to fly a plane, and it's something that I would really like to do. Oh, Tasha is saying that her brother is going to be at this gala ball. Oh yes, this is interesting, Tasha, because this is something I'm coming on to, that we can recommend people in our circles that we're either family or friends with, but we don't have romantic interest in that person, to other people. So there you go, Tasha, you've actually chumped one of the points that I was going to make. I know of a friend of mine, I have health development, I know of a friend of mine, or friend of ours, who met her husband during it was an ADRA race. It's something similar to a marathon. But it was an ADRA event, and they got talking. They just found themselves running next to each other. They got talking, and that talk went from just the talk to expression of interest, and eventually they became an item, and finally they got together and they're married with two lovely girls. So now, here is something that you may or may not have heard of. I call it the forensic method. Is everybody listening? It's the forensic method. And I think it's one of the untapped modern wells that you probably haven't actually thought about in the way that I'm going to express it. But before I express it, let me just tell you a quick story. There was this young lady who wanted to get married to a doctor, and she was just fascinated with medicine and fascinated with doctors for whatever reason. And she was thinking, what could she do? Eventually, through the aid of the Holy Spirit, she cottoned on an idea. She decided that she was going to go to the hospital cafeteria to eat her lunch. Now, she didn't work at the hospital, she worked about 15-20 minutes away from the hospital. But every lunchtime, she got up, she drove to the hospital, 15-20 minutes, went to the cafeteria, got her lunch, and ate at the cafeteria. And she did it for almost a year. Would you believe that? She did it for almost a year. And finally, one day, somebody with their tray from the cafeteria actually bumped into her and spilled food on her dress. Spilled a drink on her dress, I think it was. And he was so apologetic. And she too was apologetic because she swung around suddenly, and they were both humbled, very apologetic to each other, and eventually they got to talking. And she found out that he was a new doctor at the hospital. He had come from abroad, and she said, oh, no problem. She would show him around the city, and they got to meet each other. They talked, and eventually, bow, a relationship developed, and she got married to a doctor. Now, here is what I call the forensic method. The forensic method is simply based on what I think the police, the detectives, and these people do. Whenever there is a series of crime, particularly if it's a very serious crime, like killing or a spate of murders or anything like that, they would get psychologists or psychiatrists or these people in that world, and they would try to figure out what type of personality would do this crime. So they will try to get into the mind of the criminal and figure out how this criminal works or thinks or acts, and try to think based on the pattern of crimes this person has done, what is the next likely thing that he would do? Where is the next likely place that he would strike? Who's the next likely person demographically he would attack? And they would try to solve the crime. And interestingly, they have solved some crimes by using this method. But here's the point that I want to share with you, is that you reverse engineer the person that you would like to marry. What type of work would this person do? Where would this person worship? What type of hobbies and entertainment this person will be involved in? If if he's into health, what type of exercise, what gym might he go to, what type of social circles would he belong? And the same questions would be for if you're a man looking for a woman. Where would this person be likely to go to church? What kind of spiritual activities would this person be likely to do? Who would be the friends of this person? Where would he or she live? And then you would then try to put yourself in what I call target-rich environment. Like this girl I told you about. She wanted a doctor. So where do doctors work? At the hospital. So where did she put herself? In the hospital environment. That is what I call a target-rich environment. So probably what I want you to do is to sit down and reverse engineer the type of person that you would like to get involved with, and then avail yourself in the likely places that that person would show up. Do you understand that? And finally, I want to talk to you about something that you may have known but you haven't thought of in the way that I am going to put it across. I call this the power of new. The new chick on the block. I remember the story of Ruth. This isn't quite pertinent to our discussion. Boaz came to the field. It is clear that there were other girls in the field. It is also clear that Ruth was what I call the new chick on the block. When you are a new person, you are easily noticed and seen. Think about that. Secondly, Boaz went out of his way to help Ruth, to instruct the gleaners to leave extra gleanings for Ruth. People are also likely to be very curious about who you are. The new person on the block gets a lot of attention. But you think of it yourself. If someone new comes to church, obviously you begin to notice that person a bit more than you would all the other people that you normally see every day. You kind of rise to the top of the pile. And not only that, you get preferential treatment. So how does this tie into what we're talking about? So I want you to think about all of your hobbies, your spiritual interests, your social interests, your educational and career goals. Think of all of those. And then write down each of them, and right next to them, new places that you can go. It could be the new gym, a new club, a new church, a new choir, a new well, I said club already. Anything that is new, where you will meet new people. Because once you go into that group, you become what I call the new person on the block. And you're more likely to get a ton of attention than if you stay in the same place, same church, same gym, same social circles, same route to work all the time. So, what I want you to do is to think about new places you can go, new hobbies, new clubs, new groups, new people you can meet, new things you can do. And how can you do this? Well, some of you have some hidden talents. You can ask your friends, you can set up what I call an event. If there are no events for you to go to, set up your own events. You could set them up in your house. You could bake if you want to bake. I know some of you are into the culinary arts. Ask your friend to bring a friend and just simply socialize. Watch a movie, discuss, have a discussion about some spiritual activity, and literally begin to expand your group of contacts by letting your friends introduce you to their friends. Now, I want to ask you a simple question. I'm tying this up now with these practical things. They will never really work until in your mind you're settled that things are going to happen, that God is moving you in the right direction, and that I need you to go back to prayer and ask God, what can you do? If you don't have any ideas, ask God for ideas, and God will send you the Spirit, and the Spirit will tell you what to do. In fact, do that tonight or tomorrow morning. Just say, God, what can I do? Who could I speak with? Who could I reconnect with? Where can I go? And sit and listen. And God is going to drop it in your spirit. And you can write it down, but make sure you action it. He may give you an idea to do something that may sound a bit ridiculous, but do it anyway, because God works in mysterious ways, His wonders to perform. What is it that God is telling you to do? Where is it He's telling you to go? Who is God telling you to reconnect with? Is God opening your eyes to some possible person who's currently in your life. Okay, question time. Oh. All right, there is a question here. It's a very good question. When talking with a man, what is the recommended cutoff time? Hours and hours is not good. All right, I am going to... Okay. The recommended cutoff time, there is no specific time, and this is just a general principle, is that usually I suggest that you be the first person when speaking to cut the conversation. I don't like to end the conversation. And one of the ways in which you can do that is to suggest to the person that A, you have something to do, that you need to, there's somebody to see, and also thank them before you go. Always remember to let them know that you appreciate them speaking with you and you look forward to speaking to them again. So obviously you're not going to cut it high and dry, but I do suggest, and it depends, early on in the relationship the time frames would be shorter. As the relationship grows and blossom, then obviously you would expand the amount of time that you speak with the person. And if you're in a full-fledged relationship, obviously you would spend a lot of time speaking to each other. But the basic principle is that you would want the person to want more, to want to see you again. You don't want them to be tired of you. You just want it to be nice and short and sweet initially when you're starting to get to know each other. As you get to know each other, the conversation would expand and lengthen. And finally, when you're in a full-fledged relationship, you would have long discussions. I hope that helps. There is no exact time frame that I can give you. It is based on where the relationship is, the type of thing that you're speaking about, and also how busy you are. And if you're not very busy, you could let the person know you have to go and do something else. If you're in a social environment, this is what I would recommend. If you're speaking to someone, speak to the person for a little bit then if you see someone else that you want to talk to or you need to connect with, excuse yourself from the person, go and speak and with any other person that you want, and you can either come back to the person or tell the person that, let's connect at another point in time. So I hope that helped. Let me just simply check some of the other questions. I used to go to visit a church 5 years ago, and they said I had to be baptized. I refuse. I have since been told I can get the right hand of fellowship. Should I visit again or just go in as a newbie? I'm not too sure whether or not you're asking about the baptismal bit, and I don't feel that I am in a position to talk to you about the baptismal part of it. I think though that you should visit. There's nothing wrong with visiting. It seemed to me that you visited so much that they wanted you to become a member, and it's totally dependent on you whether or not you're led by the Spirit or you feel comfortable being a part of that congregation. However, visiting is no problem. I think they would be happy to see you again, but hopefully there are prospects in that congregation that could probably blossom into a relationship. Okay, Tasha B says, I understand we need to go to the well, but when we meet the man, I don't fully understand that question, Tasha. If you could just expand on that question. I understand we need to go to the well, but what when we meet the man? Oh, what happens when we meet the man? Whether or not you continue going to the well, then there's no need to go to the well after that, unless you want to expand your options. How can I switch my focus from doing the task at an event to trying to engage with people? It is easier to serve than to sit and converse. Any tips? How can I switch my focus from doing the task at an event? I think you need to split. If there is something that I don't know if you are the organizer of the event or if you are a person helping at the event. It's far easier if you are serving, if you're in an event, to meet a wide variety of people. However, you won't have the time to converse in depth with any one person. But what is necessary is that during the event, you literally get break or a time when you are not actively serving, that then you can socialize. Okay, good question, Patricia. I'm often in the kitchen at an event. So what you want to do is make sure that if you're at an event, even if you're serving, you get a chance, either a break or a time slot when you are not serving, that you can literally socialize at the event. Yeah, I also want to thank Tasha for letting us know that she has a brother. I'm guessing single. I'm intrigued. All right. So guys, if you're always locked in the back room of some event, please make sure that the organizers of the event know that you would like to be released at some point in time to join the event in the front part, so you could socialize. Okay, any other questions? Now here's a question that you may have thought of but you haven't asked, and sometimes I get asked, is what do you do if you are a reserved person? Like an introvert, you are not the outgoing type of person. All right, Neil, let me see what your previous question was. I'm just trying to scroll through the questions. You missed my previous question. Here we go. I found it there. I have really enjoyed today's webinar. Thanks, Hilton. I understand people are always watching, but how do you get them to do more than just watch? That's a very good question. Okay. Now, what do you do if nobody's talking to you, if they're just hovering in the background? That could be very annoying. You're aware they are observing you or watching you, but they are not doing anything. That is so very, very annoying. Now, here's what you do. There is nothing wrong in you engaging the person. And by that, I don't necessarily mean that you should engage the person along the romantic lines. I mean, engage the person in what I would call a platonic, ordinary way. The way you would speak to a friend, or the way you would speak to someone new. You just, if you are at an event, ask the person questions. Are you new around here? Have you enjoyed? Is it your first time to this kind of event? What did you like about it? And just open a conversation. Start a conversation. I always say, don't start a relationship, start a conversation. Or if you have a mutual person, and I want to share this with you, if it is that you are afraid to start a conversation with that person, get one of your friends or colleagues to start a conversation with the person and rope you in. I don't know if you understand that. If you're afraid, or if you like the person and you don't know how to start the conversation, get someone of your friend who is not, who in the secular world they call them a wingman or a wingwoman. But all the person is a friend who helps you. That friend is a bridge. And they do it in marketing. Is almost like the other day. Sorry, the other day I was in Croydon Market, and I saw this perfume. These people selling perfume, and I observed, and there was a lady. I went away and came back, and the same lady was at the perfume counter with different sets of people. And I noticed that the lady was buying things. So that lady was almost like they use the lady in the crowd to if she buys, then it's likely that other people would follow her. Similarly, what I'm saying is that you get a friend who can speak to this person, and as they start a conversation with that person, they actually invite you into the conversation, and that friend is a bridge to that person. I think it's about the confidence to speak to people. I'm also thinking of going back to the church as a member first and foremost, so I get the full benefits of the church, okay? Yes, my brother is a level 7 paramedic. I don't know what a level 7 is. A Christian. He's loving to my mom. He's the favorite cousin, or aunt's favorite, and is such a loving uncle and godfather of 3. He will kill me for this. Okay. All right. Good recommendation. This is interesting because what Tasha is doing here is recommending someone. And similarly, you should be recommended. You should have people out there who's recommending you and saying good things about you. Well done, Tasha, for this. Of course, we won't tell him. Is it different for the over 50s? Is what different? Getting to know people. I mean, where you go is different depending on the age group that you're in. The type of activities may be different. I could hardly imagine a 50-something plus person going to a do with primarily 20-something, early 30s people who have so much energy and but the principles are the same. It's the principle that matter and not the actual activity itself. So people, I'm challenging you to do a couple of things. The first challenge is to make sure you expand your base of connections and friendship. To revisit your former friends. I don't want to say ex-friends because you didn't actually break off with them. It's just that your life moved in different directions. To revisit places that you've been. To start to expand where you go and what you do. And also to make sure that you go to the modern wells. The wells would be different depending on your age and stage of life. But the principle of visiting the wells is the same. It was good speaking with you guys. I look forward every week to be speaking with you. And next week, now, if you have a question that you want me to speak to you personally about, please send me a text or an email and we will set a time to have a catch-up. I haven't caught up with several of you for a long time, but I don't mind at all speaking with you on a one-on-one. Okay, ladies, thanks for being here, and let's just end with a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for life. We thank you for knowledge. We thank you for what you have been doing in the lives of all of these people who are part of this group. But what I want you to do is to give them the assurance that you are with them. All I want you to do is to give them the confidence, the faith, and tell them, show them, open their eyes to possibilities of people around them in their world. Lead them to different and various wells, modern wells. Connect them with individuals who, even if they are not prospects, can connect them to other prospects. And help, Lord, that as they grow and develop and as they make connections, that your will for them will be realized in Jesus' name. Amen. Right, good evening, everybody, and I trust that you have a good rest of the week.